The first Berserker Khazan, originally announced back in 2018 under the working title of Project BBQ. I'm sure there's a reason why it's codenamed BBQ, but I just sort of find this funny. Later on in 2022, this game was re-revealed as Arad Chronicle Khazan, and in 2023, the final name, the first Berserker Khazan. This game was actually being developed as an online MMORPG set in the Dungeon and Fighter universe. However, that idea was scrapped after a few years of development and turned into what we see today, an action RPG Souls-like focusing specifically on Khazan, a character from the Dungeon and Fighter universe. But don't worry, Dungeon and Fighter fans, there is still an MMORPG on its way that goes under the name of Dungeon and Fighter Arad. Well, you know, Genshin Impact. Take your pick. This basically looks like Genshin Impact. So it would seem that Nexon, the creators of DNF, are wanting to branch this universe out into more genres to appeal to more audiences. And hey, I have to say it worked. I mean, I don't really have any knowledge on Dungeon and Fighter at all. And if the game had primarily sticked as a fighter, that fact would have remained the same. But because here, it's branching into an action RPG, okay, yeah, sign me up. This game caught my attention throughout last year with the promotion that was going on with the various trailers that released, and initially I thought this game was actually a hack and slash, but rather, no, this is another Souls-like, and I understand what most people are probably thinking right now. Oh god, no, another Souls-like? The shockwaves that From Software sent out throughout the video games industry continue to shake and reverb, and yeah, Souls-like games are not slowing down anytime soon. In fact, looking at the month of March, the release month of Khazan, there's another Souls-like game that's scheduled to release, AI Limit. Here's the thing though, this game here is actually really good. Like, I walked away from the demo thinking, wow, honestly, this is like one of the better Souls-like games that isn't coming from Software that I've played in an incredibly long time. And I'm meaning to say, I enjoyed this more so than I did Lies of P, and more so from what I've played of AI Limit so far. Yeah, that's kind of big. The demo runs for about 2 hours. You get to play the first 2 chapters of the game, explore some areas, and fight 2 bosses. I would describe the first Berserker as being a light Souls-like, and by that I mean that this game doesn't really have high difficulty. I know there's been some complaints about the final boss fight of the demo, and yeah, I mean, this guy kind of threw me around a little bit, but he only took me 4 attempts. There's also difficulty settings here in this game as well. You can choose either easy or normal, and I'm assuming once you finish the game, there's probably going to be a hard mode. But at least from what we've experienced here in the demo, this is more down the easier end of Souls-likes. Compared to that boss fight that I got to experience in AI Limit, yeah, that thing threw me around about like 30 odd times. So there's a bit of a difference going on here with Khazan, giving you elements of a hack and slash, but infused with a lot of the same things you come across in a Souls-like. Don't get me wrong, this is very much a Souls-like, I just think that the difficulty scaling is kind of notched down a bit. And this is absolutely a good thing, especially with the difficulty options of an easy mode there. It means that for people that generally aren't into Souls-likes, due to the difficulty curve, this might be one that you might want to reconsider, especially if you lean into action or hack and slash games. All of the Souls-like tropes are here. We got the bonfire system, which is a nexus, which by the way, this is like the coolest activation animation for a bonfire that I've seen throughout any Souls-like game. This is badass. Souls are acquired after defeating an enemy and can be used to strengthen your character. You'll also lose all souls upon death, but have 1 chance to regain them. Levels are laid out in a linear fashion, very Souls-like, with the shortcuts to activate as you make your way through. There are also some branching pathways that'll lead you to a chest or a mini-boss. We've got the classic environmental traps where the developers probably laugh in amongst themselves, thinking, yeah, I wonder how many players will fall for this. I did. That's me. That f***ing monkey knew that was gonna happen. Speaking about these f***ing monkeys. For the combat system of this game, yes, it is Souls-like, but infuses a lot of great ideas from various other Souls-like games, especially Sekiro, which is always good. We love to see elements of Sekiro funneling into Souls-likes nowadays. Everything here just feels so responsive, so fluid, and just so good. Like, this really took me back, considering that this game is from Nexon. I had my reservations because of that fact alone. I don't generally have high expectations of Nexon-related games. As much as I loved MapleStory back in the day, Meeple, a subsidiary team of Nexon who are responsible for Dungeon & Fighter, did a really good job here. So, it's everything you come to expect. You got that classic lock-on system, you have to study enemy attack patterns to know exactly when to either guard or when to dodge. There are unblockable attacks, but then there's also a system that allows you to completely parry unblockable attacks if timed perfectly. The guard system is great because you can do perfect guards, sort of similar to almost the parry system from Sekiro, and performing this at the exact right time will also decrease the enemy's own stamina meter, which basically works as a Sekiro posture system. If the enemy's stamina bar goes all the way to 0, they're then opened up for a heavy, brutal attack. This won't completely finish them, but you'll be able to dish out a lot of damage. Along with being able to level Khazan up with the souls at bonfires to just get general stat increases, there is also a complete skill tree system here, which has its own XP that you'll passively gain to eventually unlock a skill point to then put into this tree that is spread across the 3 different weapon types. And this skill tree, very similar to Sekiro, will allow you to pull off new attacks and moves depending on what weapon you're using. From the demo, there are 3 weapons. Not too sure if there'll be another one for the full game, but we've got the dual wielding, we have the great sword, and we've got a spear. All 3 of these provide slightly different playstyles. All of these weapons feel really great to use. The spear is quite fast hitting, along with being able to create some distance between you and an enemy. The great sword is a classic great sword, incredibly slow but incredibly hard hitting, and dual wielding is fast, up close attacks. I personally opted for the dual wielding kit, as this is definitely the most satisfying to use. This game's combat system is quite fast, and I think this is sort of where the hack and slash vibe comes in. In regards to combat speed, I would say it's sort of like Bloodborne and Sekiro coming together, but with maybe a hint more of hack and slash going on. As much as we do have those defensive mechanics like guarding, countering, perfect guarding, parrying, which all of these just feel so good to use, there is also dodging along with perfect dodging. I absolutely have to reiterate this though, if you were a fan of Sekiro's guard and parry system, that system that revolves around pressing the guard button at the exact perfect time an attack is landed on you, you are going to get so many kicks out of Khazan, because I do believe that its entire guard system here, with everything infused into it, is directly inspired from Sekiro. From what I'm seeing, this is like one of the best cases of Sekiro inspiration I think I've experienced in a Souls-like so far. I think this game is going to have a pretty good amount of depth, which is another really surprising factor. It is hard to definitively say this just because in the demo you don't get to access that much of the skill tree, but just sort of looking over the skill tree and the different benefits that you can gain from this, being able to extend combos and put in new combination inputs into your combos, as well as active skills that basically work like Sekiro's arts or passives. It does appear that if you want this game's combat system to be quite technical with what you can do here with combos, it's totally there, which is absolutely a good thing. I think this is something that a lot of people are wanting more of from Souls-like, especially, you know, from what we saw within Sekiro. And I guess this is another one of those sort of character action-driven hack and slash game elements coming into play, how something like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta has a lot of tech to it. There is also a resource gauge known as Spirit. This can be used to either activate a ranged attack known as the Javelin, which will consume 1 Spirit, or can be used to activate your active skills, just like the Sekiro arts. This resource can be accumulated as you defeat enemies. We also have to talk about how gearing works, because there is a full-on loot system here with different rarities of equipment and accessories. There's also gear sets that, depending on how many many of the same pieces of equipment you have equipped, you'll reap different benefits, similar to what you'd come across in something like Diablo. I'm not absolutely sure about this, but it does seem as if loot is randomized looking at the defense stat and the potential other stats depending on the rarity of the equipment when it's dropped from an enemy or found within a chest. There's also materials that can be found throughout the world as well, which will no doubt be used to strengthen equipment and upgrade it further, along with set-specific materials in order to craft pieces of equipment from a certain set. And lastly, looking at story and the world and visuals here, this is a very dark, drab, and airy-ish kind of game, and I think that's sort of like the art direction that Neepal wanted to go in. It's very, I guess, fitting for the theme that's going on here. These cold, desolate environments mixed in with the anime-esque cel-shaded visuals going on with the character models, similar to what we see with something like Code Vein. It's brutal, there's a lot of blood splattering around as you connect your weapons with the enemy. I mean, it's really good. Everything's really good. The environments don't wow me or anything, but from what we've seen so far, it's at least good and very fitting for the theme. From what I understand, this is an origin story of Khazan from the Dungeon & Fighter universe, set sometime before the events of Dungeon & Fighter, explaining how exactly Khazan became the first Berserker. This man is possessed by a ghost, and this entity inside of his body provides him with the strength of the Berserker. However, this thing wants to take over Khazan, like he wants to claim his body as his own. But Khazan strikes up a deal with this thing and suggests that the two work together in order to achieve their goals. It seems like the story is going to revolve heavily around some sort of a revenge mission. I don't know, the story seems okay from what I'm seeing right here. I think that if you've been a long time Dungeon & Fighter fan, because that series has been around for quite a while, then this would be incredibly cool to get more of a backstory on one of the very well-known characters. And I do like when companies try to expand their universes, sort of similar to what we're seeing with League of Legends, branching outside of the MOBA setup and going into all kinds of different genres and formats. Arcane is blown up into this monumentally massive thing, and people that don't have any interest in League are now suddenly interested in it. So I can see the same kind of thing happening here with the first Berserker Khazan and any other future project that Neepal decide to pump out revolving around the DNF universe. I believe, from what I know at least, this is the very beginning of their future plans that they intend to do with DNF. However, those are my first impressions of the first Berserker Khazan. I think this game has a lot of potential and is likely going to be one of the better Souls-likes that come out of 2025. Again, I have to recommend this to people that aren't usually into Souls-like games. Give this a try. The demo is available on all platforms as of right now. However, guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Be sure to drop a like as it helps me out a bunch, and subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything going on here. Massive shout out, as always, to my wonderful patrons. I hope each and every one of you are having a fantastic day, and we'll talk again real soon.